Hey, so everybody's kind of telling stories, and to a certain extent there are all these epic stories from the 10 Commandments and even down to Bristol Pale and somehow staying on Dancing with the Stars. Can you believe that? But you know, this story that I'm going to tell tonight is about a man named Hernando Cortes who set off from Spain to kind of conquer the world. And it's in part inspiration, but also part call to action. It's kind of simple, but it's also difficult at the same time. And this guy, he actually wanted to conquer the world in different parts of it. But before I get started with the story, I'd like everybody to kind of ask themselves a question. What's holding you back? Think about that as we kind of go through this story. Hernando Cortes in 1519 set out from Cuba to head out to Central America and take control of not only the world, but also parts of Mexico before he even knew it even existed. When he landed on the shores of Central America, he actually fought many natives, and at the same time, now I got to my slide. At the same time, he actually found out about a man named Montezuma, who was an emperor of a large army that was 2,000 miles inland and had vast domain treasures to be able to conquer and take over. The thing is, his men needed a little bit motivation. Initially, they were motivated by the will to succeed. But as they found out that the natives kind of outranked them 300 to 1, they kind of got scared. So the only thought that Cortes had was to take anything out of the way, and that was to burn the boats. He said, "Burn the boats." And they were like, "Excuse me? That's our only way home. How are we going to get home?" See, he knew that if they left, denied, and actually stayed on those boats in order to get home, they would be scared, fearful, and they would actually just go back home instead of conquering on with this vision. But they actually succeeded. He burned the boats, continued on, and went inland to take over Mexico and later take over their Aztec army. And that's the question that makes me think about what's the difference between Cortes and any one of us in here in this room. Many times we are scared. Cortes was someone who was very passionate about his vision and where he was going in life. And he wanted to get those people in line with him. We have safety nets. Sometimes it's our families, our friends, and even our jobs that keep us from opportunities and our own talents in order to drive forward and go in the direction that we want to go. And many of us have stories tonight talking in the same motivational aspect. And Cortes, he made a choice. He made a choice that either he could go on or he could subdue to the fears of his men and go all the way back home. But he didn't. He wanted to burn the boats and move on into the future. That took a lot of vision. Initially, when he got all this talent with him to go into Central America, they were aligned with him. But once they found out they were outnumbered, they were scared. So he burned the boats in order to get them back aligned into that vision that he had. It took him a little bit of persistence. I'd say that the boat was even more on the line of a control freak. But he knew that he wanted to go in the direction that they all needed to go in with him. And it brings me to a story of John Hamm, who's one of my favorite actors right now, Mad Men. He was actually a struggling actor and a waiter at the time he got selected for the part in Mad Men. And he said, "I'm going to give myself to the age of 30. I'm not going to be a 45-year-old person still struggling and chasing after a dream." He knew his limits. But at the same time, he knew how far he was willing to go. He knew he had some talents, but if he didn't get as far as he wanted to, then he wasn't going to sweat it and hold on to that. And that took him to realize that, you know what, I have the key to my own destiny. I'm not going to let things hold me back. But how many times do we as individuals actually let all these things get in our way? Chains, walls, that we don't realize that our own talents can be the key that actually free us. You know, we got to realize our own genius, our own talents, and also kind of rally people around us to help us realize that thing. Now, sometimes our genius actually it doesn't translate in the way that we want it to. It can actually be translated into stupidity. And while the smart thing to do sometimes seems like the smart thing to do at the time, the craziest idea can be the best idea that someone has ever had, whether it's around a business or a drive. So the thing is, as I think about Cortes in this story is, back to the question originally, how many of you are letting things hold you back? What are your boats? Maybe you kind of need to stack it all in a pile, set a match, and light it all in flames to make sure that it's out of your life. So I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. If you enjoyed it, I'm happy. If you didn't, it was only 5 minutes of your life. So.